Well, folks, welcome to Big Cats in the Wild, a show about big cats, and we're in the wild. Well, we're actually in my front yard. Anyway, let's get her going. Oh, you know, it never fails to bring a smile to your face. Should you go and buy a Jaguar XKR? For the purists, it's the X150. It succeeded the X100, carried over kind of the little traditional E-type Jag oval grille, and it harks all the way back. The XK series, Jaguar always built a grand tourer right away from its inception. Jaguar were Swallow sidecars, or SS, back in the day. The X120, the way through the 150, then the XKE in the US, known as the E-type here in the rest of the world. But today we're going to talk about the XK. If you want to go and spend some of your kids' inheritance, is it the right thing to do? For the purist, this is the X150. It superseded the X100. Originally displayed at the 2005 Detroit show as the ALC, the concept. It was pretty much the finished car, became known as the X150, launched at Frankfurt later on that year. This is an early car, 56, one of the very first XKRs that actually were made in production. Launched in 2006 as its non-supercharged version, a huge choice of one engine. It was petrol only, and you could, for £13,000, add a supercharger. Anyway, today we're going to ask the question, should you buy an XKR? Should you spend some of the kids' inheritance and just live life to the full, really? That's what motoring's all about. It's the places these things will take you. I've had fun, actually. There's a link, 1,000 miles racing the sun in a Clarkson-like fashion. That was great fun last year on the shortest night of the year, racing from Land's End to Lowestoft. So if you haven't seen that, it's a bit of fun, and that's what this channel's all about. But in all seriousness, this was penned by Ian Callum, and it's no surprise that it looks very much like the DB9. Now, although it's attributable to Henrik Fisker, that's the DB9 that is, most of the design work was done under Ian Callum's guise. So he makes no apologies for the fact, and it all stems from effectively crash testing. Back in the day, it's you know, this three-quarter light area and all the rest of it. We're going to delve deep into it. I've got my trusty book so we don't get the facts wrong. An overview, background, that's what I've just described. We'll look at major changes, we'll look at performance, what it's like to drive, what it's like to live with, what goes wrong, what to look for, and finally, should you buy one? So if you want to stick around for that, it's very welcome. Haven't subscribed, have a look at all the silly stuff that I do in cars. As you can see, I've got one or two just lying around here. There's a Maserati 3200 just lurking in the background here. This is our little Mark 1 MR2, and we got all sorts of nonsense. But anyway, I'm Ed, and this is Backroadhero. You're very welcome. What sets this car apart from the X100 that preceded it is the fact that it's all aluminium. It's bonded, epoxy bonded and riveted chassis. It has aluminium panels, making the weight just a shade under 1,600 kilos. Now that seemed probably quite heavy at the time. However, it's a lightweight compared to some of the other offerings that are currently available in the modern world. Doing that sort of construction meant it was 50% stiffer for the chassis than its predecessor in coupe form, and 30% stiffer than it was in the convertible. Throughout its model range, a 6-speed automatic, that's plenty. Flappy panels from the outset. The J-gate was replaced with the rotary knob in the 2009 update, along with updates to the engine from 4.2 to 5 litres. So let's look at updates throughout the range. On sale from 2006 to 2014, they remained largely similar and certainly recognisable throughout that model range. If you stuck a vanity plate on it, no one would really know except for the purist. I mentioned 2005 as a concept, went on sale just the year after in 2006. It was available, as I said, as the 4.2 with the Eaton supercharger, made that the XKR and 420. So you can tell this is an early car from the fact that it has got the large radio antenna on the rear right hand wing here. That was replaced fairly soon on to one integrated into the rear spoilers, or it was available actually as a kit from Jaguar. 350 quid. Well, you can understand why a lot of owners didn't actually bother. You can pull the fuse for the aerial, as many people do, to keep it down. Anyway, 2009, major facelift. You can see the differences. There were intakes down in here and the brakes. The bumpers were different. The interior was updated. But more importantly, for 2009, the engines went from 4.2 to 5 litres. Of course, you could still add the supercharger, and that took the XK, the non-supercharged or naturally aspirated car, from 298 horsepower to 385, and it took the XKR from 420 to 510. They are scary cars, folks. There's absolutely no doubt about it. These things will bite you in the ass if you overcook it slightly, especially in the wet. You'll see the traction control light flashing away. But they're a hoot, an absolute hoot, and the linear delivery of the supercharger is absolutely fantastic. But we'll get onto that on the drive. Early cars had the option, certainly for the CATs, the computer-controlled suspension, and we'll talk about the issues with those a little bit later on. So performance-wise, I got the figures here. The regular 4.2 V8 will still be sub 6 seconds, 5.9 seconds, 0 to 62 miles per hour or 100 kilometers. The XKR drops a further second off that. It's a sub 5 second car, 4.9 seconds, 0 to 62. But in 2008, they had a limited run of an XKR. 200 cars, lifted the speed limiter to 174, some aero and some bigger brakes, I suppose, added to that. 2009, it became the 5 litre, 385 horsepower, and it dropped the 5.9 down to 5.2, and the XKR came along at 510 horsepower. But then the XKRS came along. It was the most powerful at 550 horsepower. It was 40 kilos lighter, stole the brakes from the F-Type. And that was later on in the production. 0 to 62 in 3.9 seconds. I can tell you 3.9 is really quick. Lurking in the background is an Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio, and it's sub 4 seconds as well, rear wheel drive only, and another scary car. Anyway, but the real party piece of the XKR is the 50 to 70 acceleration. It's 1.9 seconds. That's as long as that took me to say 1.9 seconds, 50 to 70. Overtaking is a breeze in this thing. Put your foot down, knock it over to sport, put your foot down, and a big line of cars becomes one, really, as you punch your way past it to the legal limit, of course. And of course, this is very, very easy to cost you a lot of money in fees, or for even losing your license, because you really got to watch your speed. So then, getting onto the drive, it's smooth, it's quiet, it's refined. There's that little burble behind you. You can remove fuse 19, I believe. It opens the valves permanently or doesn't let them shut for that oral sensation. We've just left this car absolutely standard. It's nice. It's a Grand Tourer. That's what it's designed to do. Early cars had the option for the CAT system, which is kind of the sport adjustable suspension. You can check inside, and if you've got a wire coming off the top of the struts, then you have got the CAT system in the early cars. 2009, they updated the dampers, still variable and adjustable. However, we'll get onto the faults and things to watch for and avoid in these cars a little later on. You'll agree it's the looks of this car that set it apart. Little vent saying supercharged in the bonnet. the lights. It's a timeless classic design, and Ian, you did an absolutely fantastic job with this. It's a credit to you as a designer that it still looks as good and current today as it did in the past. I love the little kick up of the rear spoiler, the rear lights. Everything about it is just a gorgeous thing to behold, and especially in this kind of more unusual color, the light blue with the caramel leather interior really sets it off. Too many of these are black and grey. It's always nice to get one in a slightly unusual color. Oh, that sounds like a NASCAR if truth be told. So let's take it for a little spin and see how we are at. We'll see what happens. There we go. Oh, that is really nice. It's so linear. I'm used to obviously the turbocharged Alpha, and there's minimal turbo lag, but when it goes, it goes. This is just a big shove in the back, and it keeps on going. That is the first impression I have. The other one is that it's absolutely solid on the road. Dare I say it, more solid than the Alfa Giulia. It comes from a different era. It's kind of like hewn from solid rock, or that's what it feels like. Suspension is a little bit harder than the Maserati 3200 GT. It's more of a cruiser. This is the 6-speed gearbox in it, and it uses every one of those 6 gears to its maximum effect. You could easily cross continents in this car. It's fabulous. It's effortless, completely effortless at speed. Certainly at the legal UK maximums here. Let's get out of the 30 zone, stick it into sport, and let's see what we're about. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh yeah. You know what? Let's not look at the speedo. That's more than enough shove to keep you happy. Absolutely. Right, but you know what? The nature of this car is a long distance cruiser. It can hustle, absolutely it can hustle. But you know what? That's not the raison d'etre, as they say, across the channel. Steering is nicely weighted. Of course, it's got staggered 20-inch alloys on this thing. There's plenty of grip. There's no hint of it even breaking free in the dry. There are some good tires on this car. In the wet or when it's greasy, I'm sure the converse is not true. Absolutely glorious. It's solid, it's comfortable, it's quiet, it's everything you would expect. A little bit of tire noise coming through, but then this isn't particularly a good road. But you know what? I'm happy with that. Absolutely happy with that. So let's look at the interior. We have all of the seat controls in here. We've got the window switches and the mirrors. These are the kind of conventional handles. To lock them, you push them in. Illumination. Got fog lights. We've got the fuel cap, and we've got the boot opening. Here we have got all the controls on the steering wheel for the cruise control, resume and cancel, the lovely little R badge there, and the Jaguar. And just look at that for a view. Timeless kind of wood and leather. Smells great in here. Voice activation, don't bother with that, it never recognises. And then we have got volume and track adjustments in here. This is a caramel leather absolutely glorious. Couple of points is that the cup holders, one is large and one is small, so depending on what you've got, water bottle in there and your regular coffee cup in there, a little bit of storage in here. There's the electronic park brake, there's the J-gate, of course, that was replaced with the knob when it was 2009 and above, but look at that, walnut and leather interior. The controls for the seats, of course, memory seats, 10-way in this car. I believe 16-way were options. This is an Alpine stereo. However, I believe in the later years there was a Bowers & Wilkins stereo system that was available for the car, certainly in the portfolio models as well. This is the J-gate, and in fact I really love this setup rather than the rotary knob of the 2009 cars, the 5-litre cars. This being the 4.2 has got still got a 6-speed gearbox, it's still got the flappy paddles in under here. However, what I like about this, I stick it in drive, and then as I come to a roundabout, I just swipe it across to sport. Once you hit the brakes, you get a engine assisted braking, and you get the little blips of the engine as it down changes. I really like that idea. Then you can leave it in sport for the acceleration out of your roundabouts, or you can pop it back in drive and cruise. I really like that. All XKs have got start-stop, however keyless entry was an option in the car. This is the automatic speed limiter, ASL. You hit that and then you adjust it via the cruise control, and it will remind you when you are getting to that limit. This is the clunky bit. You do not buy a 2006 car, or 2007 or whatever, and hope that the infotainment is going to be great. Yes, this car has navigation. It does have Bluetooth for your phone, but it doesn't have streaming media. So one thing that kind of gets on my nerves with this thing is because the infotainment system is so antiquated. You've got Bluetooth for your phone, but you do not have streaming Bluetooth in the early cars. The later cars will have that either directly, or you will have the ability to plug in what they call an iPod emulator, something like an Inveri or a Bovi. I'll put the link in the description below. It plugs into the existing kind of iPod socket, a 29 or 30 pin iPod socket, and you can recover using your auxiliary in all streaming media from your phone. Really makes a difference. In this car, it was an option for aux in. It's not fitted, and it's a little bit upsetting because I think the kit is no longer available from Jaguar. I couldn't find any other way to get my streaming audio into the car. So the radio it is, but you know what? You don't need to worry about the radio in this car or any infotainment. It's the sheer noise of the engine that makes the difference. However, it is a grand tourer, and I would be remiss to not point that out. So if streaming Bluetooth is your thing, then you need to look at a means to do it. Look for that iPod socket, look for the auxiliary in, and then you've got options, but without that it's somewhat limited. The navigation system is outdated as well, so if you've got apps on your phone, then that's the way to go through that. But apart from that, the sound system is fantastic. The seats are comfortable. That big long sweeping boot line just makes it absolutely fantastic, and the look out the wing mirror when you can see the bulging haunches of the rear wings. So what's it like to actually live with this car? Well, she likes a drink. You'd be lucky to get high teens, and certainly on that 1,000-mile trip that I did racing the Sun, it averaged just over the 20 mark. Now I wasn't hanging around for that, of course it was a speed challenge, but it did really well. But really it shouldn't be the economy that you're worried about this car, it's how it actually drives and what it's like to live with and how it makes you feel, more importantly. So it's only a 2+2. If you've got someone that can remove their legs, then they'll fit perfectly in the back. Certainly young kids maybe up to about 7, 8 years old can avail of it. Apologies for the pigeon there, it's being rather loud. Plenty of room in the front, really comfy seats. 10-way with optional 16-way seats. Heated and cooled in some of the models with that option. The control of the heated seats is done through the main panel, the main touch panel. Slightly annoying, but apart from that, they work really well. So this big hatch provides access to the boot, 300 litres of space. The navigation system is based on DVD, so there it is. The battery is in here, accessed by taking out those 4. So if you need to gain access to the boot, the key is around about in here. Get the key from in here, push that button and it comes out. Stick it in, open it manually and get in to your charger in there. But you see, it's kind of not particularly deep, but it's a good enough size to get everything you will possibly need in there. Of course, if you've got a nice folder with all your history and stuff like that, you can let it rattle around in the boot. Underneath here, it's basically just a spare wheel, a bit of a space saver, but at the end of the day, it is there, not a piece of foam like everything else. Towing eye, you know what, this has never been used. Even some chocks there I see, and a bright orange wheel, eh? So ever wondering whether your car has got the CAT system or not? The early cars, it was optional. This has been fitted, or is fitted, with CATs. It's got the wire out of the top of the suspension, so that's a big giveaway. You know what, look at that in design. Big aluminium strut tops. So there's the airbag for the pedestrian system, and of course if it goes off, it's known to blow the hinges as well, so really it needs to be maintained. But look at that, an absolute thing of beauty. Access to the engine, obviously somewhat limited. It's a big engine to put in this space. So what goes wrong with these things? Well, because it's aluminium bodied, you don't have rust issues, but you will have corrosion issues. Slightly different aspect. Not as nasty, I suppose, because aluminium creates an aluminium oxide naturally to kind of protect it. However, you might find that differences, especially in the door jambs. You might find that there are 2 welds in this car, one each side of the roof, and those are the only welds, believe it or not. Everything else is big solid panels. You will find that with dissimilar metals, you get this kind of galvanic effect. It's a small voltage because of dissimilar metals, and as a result of that, you can get corrosion. Now, where the bumpers hang in, there are steel mounts in there, various old bits and pieces, of course, around bolt holes and things. But moreover than the actual chassis is the aluminium bodywork. It's really quite soft. A lot of paintless dent repair shops won't tackle aluminium bodies simply because of their difficulty to work. So you'll need a good specialist and someone that's willing to work on aluminium panels. Barring that, it'll be a little bit of filler, a little bit of paint. So they're not as robust in the car park as you would be led to believe, perhaps. They do show up little dings. So if you're going to buy a car, make sure that it's straight down the sides, have a good look in down the angles, and make sure that it's all straight and kind of dent free. Or, you know what, go in with your eyes open. If you know it's dented, well then you're going to have to live with that, perhaps. The CAT system, computer active tech suspension. The components inside the cars, certainly the early ones, so if you're on a 2006 to 2009 car, you've got the wire coming out the top of the strut. Be prepared to spend a little bit of money on that. Each of the struts are kind of £350 each and about 2 hours labour. Most places that specialise in these are about £100 an hour, so bank on 550 quid a corner. for one of these. The electronic handbrake can start to give issues. It's really a specialist job because you need to deactivate the handbrake system and put it into service mode using the diagnostics equipment. So you really shouldn't be tackling the electronic handbrake by yourself. You could easily lose your fingers. Early XKRs came with this E-diff, the differential, but most have been fixed under warranty, I have to say. If you are hearing noises under acceleration, under cornering, then it's an E-diff issue. As I said, most of them were fixed under warranty by Jaguar themselves, but whilst you're driving it, listen for any strange noises. It should be quiet at the back through the differential. There should be no knocking and rattling through the suspension, and of course, if you're going to do suspension struts about 60,000 miles, you may as well do all the bushes as well and all the suspension to make it drive just as it should. These things have got a clever pedestrian safety system where the bonnet pops up under airbags and cushions the blow of anyone that you've just run over. They can give issues, and this car is no exception. In fact, it was throwing up a fault light on the dash. We took it to a specialist. They said that there are 3 sensors inside the front bumper here. Later cars only had 2. They cleaned up the contacts. The fault light went away, but they updated the software for that to decode or code out the center of the 3 sensors, just like the later cars, and we haven't had any issues since. So it was £150 or thereabouts to remove the front bumper and clean up the contacts there. As far as other costs are concerned, apart from the belt service, that's been it for this car over the last sort of couple of years or so. One fault that they're known for is the drain tube for the air conditioning. They call it the duck neck, I think it is, or the duck bill. These things block at the very bottom. To get at them, a specialist will drop the gearbox, nip a little bit off the bottom to solve that. If you've got a Jaguar, the recommended technique is to actually remove the whole dash and replace that little duck bill. Now, I wouldn't want to be paying for that. It's got to be 10 hours labour, I'm sure, to remove a dash, and they're never quite the same when you put them back together again. So going the specialist route, I think, is the way to do that. Drop the gearbox, access the bottom end, nip the bottom. But if you see any condensation on a car inside, if it has wet carpets, it may well even be window seals. Window seals are known to leak in this. Of course, they're pillarless, so it's really, really important, certainly for wind noise as well as rain and moisture ingress, that the seals on the doors and windows are well oiled, as they say, or certainly clean anyway, and rubberized to make them continue to be supple and hold out all the elements. One final problem is overheating, and it's not just the radiator, because a lot of leaves and stuff can get in the front. They can rot and obviously reduce the ability of the air to go through the radiator. However, the major issue with these is thermostats. So if the fan is continuing to run after you've shut the car down, or if it continues to run constantly, then there's an issue with the thermostat. Now, it will throw up a fault light on the dash if it continues to run when it's not supposed to. So inside, this is a glorious place to be. It was updated for the 2009 model year, but I have to say, I really, really like this. It's just a thing of beauty. You just know you're in a Jaguar. And that's what they are renowned to be: comfortable, smooth, long distance cruisers. Service history is absolutely essential in these cars. They need and like their oil, and they need the right oil. So a specialist service history or Jaguar service history, you may as well do it right, folks, because it's not worth it with these. The engines themselves like the correct grade of oil, and if they're not, then you can get into issues with them being a little bit noisier than they should be. I spoke about damp carpets, so have a good rummage around, you can tell probably on a colder sort of a day, condensation. Does it smell a bit fuggy in here? It's always noticeable in a car if it's getting damp or moisture ingress. When you're driving it, check for rattles and squeaks in the suspension. Check that there's no lights in there. The TPMS, the tire pressure monitoring system, can throw up issues as well. Make sure there are no faults. If you have a little diagnostics machine, you can plug it in. You can get them really cheaply, little Bluetooth thing on your phone. Plug them in and make sure there are no faults as well. Electrics, try everything. Try the seats, try the heated seats. They're fairly simple affairs. Check the air conditioning, run it full cold for a while. Harder to tell when it's slightly cold like it is today, but certainly in the summertime, probably the best time to buy a car for checking the air conditioning. Components like dryers and condensers, pumps are expensive things on these cars, and certainly get access and all the rest of it. Best avoiding the ones that aren't absolutely perfect, and there are plenty to go around, so move on to the next one. Check for curbed alloys, especially the center kind of split two-piece alloys. They're really hard to refurbish well because you've got to take the individual bolts out effectively to do it well. Now, most people would just spray over those, but it's good to keep the original look off them all. So should you buy one? Should you buy one? That's what you're here for. This is a proper Jaguar. It's got timeless, elegant design. It is designed to cross continents with ease, and it does that. It goes like blazes. It puts a smile on your face. Lots of articles I've read about the XK and the XKR suggest that you should go for the 5 litre. I can tell you that the 4.2 is a lovely car. Some would argue that it's a little bit more robust than the 5 litre engine. However, in the XKR, guys, I can tell you that 420 is absolutely plenty. You really don't need the 500 plus horsepower of the 5 litre cars. So save yourself a little bit of money. Buy a nice little 4.2 XKR, because let's face it, with a few £1,000s difference in the cost of these things, you may as well go for the top of the range XKR. That supercharger whine and then that NASCAR exhaust is absolutely nasty. It's a fantastic thing. They're generally known for being fairly robust, and with the specialist and main dealer network out there, there are plenty of places to get them fixed, because let's face it, all cars go wrong. You want to be able to get them fixed rapidly with someone that knows what they're doing, and Jags have been around a long time. They've got a big following, certainly with the forums and everything like that. You can ask questions, and people will be out there to answer and aid you along the way. There is a great drivers club or Jaguar owners club, and you know what, people get together, they enjoy their Jags, and they have a reputation of being a slightly older man's car. I prefer to call them gentlemen's cars. So what are the downsides? Big cats are thirsty things. As I said, you'd be lucky to get high teens, low 20s miles per gallon in these. They're the top tax bracket, so you're looking at £600 a year, certainly in the UK. Insurance isn't cheap. They're not old enough yet to qualify for full classic status and limited mileage policies, although they're not far off. This car's 17 years old now, so another 3 years at 20 years old, it'll be considered for classic policy, so that's not so much of an issue moving forward. Ultimately, it's how the cars make you feel. No one knows where you're going in one of these. You could just be nipping down to Tesco's. You might be off to your chalet in the Alps. Nobody knows about yourself. And it's that internal grin and fun factor that this car gives. It's benign, it's sedate, it's comfortable. You can drive 1,000 miles in this and get out at the far end completely refreshed. As far as feelings go, in one of these, you're pretty convinced that everything is right with the world. I'll say it again, it's how it makes you feel. And in one of these, you feel like $1 million. So go and spend the kids' inheritance, folks. Go and get you something that's iconic, classic, fast, beautiful. And go and use it. Don't just stick it in the garage. Polish it occasionally. Jump in it. Go to France. Cross the continent. Enjoy it. These things are to be enjoyed. And I couldn't think of a better car to do it. We've had fun in this one. This should be on your bucket list, folks. It's something you won't regret. It's sublime. On that note, thanks for watching. All the best now. Bye-bye.